The meeting will begin in 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a council meeting of Monday, May 11th, 2026. Everyone that can, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, before we approve the agenda, we have received 3 delegation requests to speak to the Planning and Development Committee minutes of May 6, 2026. Procedurally, a 2/3 majority vote is required to permit the delegations. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Sharwa. Guess there's not a deferral. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. I had sent the clerk earlier today a motion for deferral of the planning minutes. I don't know if now is the time to discuss it prior to the vote.
If you have a motion of deferral, you need a seconder to put it on the floor, and we'll just vote on it without any discussion.
Do you want an explanation for why, or is it not?
No, the deferral motion has no explanation, no debate.
Okay.
So you have a seconder?
No seconder?
Well, this is a deferral motion. So a seconder?
No.
No seconder, so the deferral motion.
Can I get an explanation?
Well, you can second it and vote it down, or you can move on, and we have a mover and seconder for the procedural bylaw being waived.
I'll second the deferral because I'd like to hear it.
All right. So we have, do you have the deferral? We have Councillor DeFlavio as the mover, Councillor Sharwa seconding it. All right, so moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Charwa. Resolved that bylaws 2627 and 2628 be deferred to the next council meeting to allow more time to review staff's detailed responses on parking, cash in lieu, and underlying parking methodology. Vote on eScribe for the deferral. Councillor Bradsey?
My vote's a yes if it didn't go through yet.
All right, that's defeated. All right, so now we have moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio, resolved that sections 8.5E and F of the procedural bylaw be waived to permit Kevin Luchenheisen, Harley Valentine, and Ann Tursick to delegate on the Planning and Development Committee meeting or minutes of May 6, 2026. E-scribe vote, please. That's approved. All right.
Do you want to just clarify, you'll be allowed to delegate after?
Yes, so the delegations will be after, in the portion of our agenda where it's pertinent. I would also like to amend the agenda to include OSOM conference updates from Councillor DeVoli and Howe, and an update on the Fresh Coast Economic Corridor Conference from Councillor Corstangi. These updates will come after the discussion report. In addition, I would like to amend the agenda for bylaws 2627 and 2628 to be voted upon immediately after previous minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved the agenda for May 11th, 2026 council meeting be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried.
Can I
All
have
right.
a point of clarification, please?
Sure.
I'd just like to know that because we've heard these delegations before, is it correct, am I correct in assuming that they are to bring new information and have a 5-minute time limit?
That's correct.
Thank you. So maybe it would be good to reinforce that with the delegates.
Sure.
Thank you.
Tonight we have Dr. Leslie Rigg, President of Brock University, providing updates on the Brock Strategic Plan. Leslie, please come to the podium. Just before you go ahead, good evening, and I'd just like to congratulate you on your reappointment. I think it came out today. So.
Thank you, Mayor. So good evening, everyone. Shall I start? Good evening, councillors, I should say. I'm pleased to be here to provide an update on Brock University, a little bit on where we're going, and really just to share with you how excited I am, not just to be renewed, but even before I was renewed, at the direction that we're taking. And really, I think it's an exciting time, not just for us, but for all of Niagara. And so do I move the slides? Oh, look. Oh, thank you. So as many of you know, more than 60 years ago, Niagara residents joined together to advocate for a university to call their own. They knew then what remains true now, that a public university intrinsically dedicated to serving the community has immeasurable value. Studying locally meant talent could be retained in the region, local industry could count on a highly trained workforce, and more innovation would happen right here in Niagara. So that was September 1964, and obviously much has changed since our humble beginnings. We now have, if we go to the next slide, do I have it here? Do you want me to push something? No? Okay. Oh, okay, you've got it there. Okay, thanks. You know, not only are we proud to be one of Hamilton Niagara's top employers with almost 3,000 employees and a vast majority of them living in Niagara and 50 of them here in Grimsby, but we are a small city when everybody shows up on one day. We have almost 20,000 students, those 3,000 employees, and if everybody that's associated with the university showed up on one day, there'd be 26,000 of us on campus. So we really are an anchor in the community. So if you can go to the next slide. Our economic impact is felt in Niagara and beyond. Every year, Brock contributes approximately $1.5 billion to Niagara's economy. And if we go out to all of Ontario, we double that. We have almost 124,000 alumni, and in a couple weeks, we'll have another 4,000 to add to that as they cross the stage and graduate. And these represent over 110 countries in the world. So one of the things that is always special about bringing or having an institution like Brock University or like Niagara College is not only do we act as anchors in the economy and in the community, but we also work as an attractant. So Brock University, around 28% of our students come from Niagara. I always thought it would be higher, but about 28% do. But of those polled, 43% say they want to stay in Niagara. So Niagara does a really good job of making people fall in love with this location. In the top left picture is Paul Zalesko. He's from our chemistry department, but also the Brock Niagara Validation Prototyping Manufacturing Institute, which we call VPMI much easier. It's a $14 million collaboration that brings industry and research together to help Niagara communities test new ideas, problem solve, and develop the technologies that keep our region competitive. And if you go to the next slide. We know that Niagara's future relies on a strong, prepared workforce, and we're especially proud of our experiential learning and co-op offerings. With experiential learning and opportunities in 100% of our academic programs, Brock is a long-standing leader in experiential education. Over the past few years, there have been 32 co-op placements here in Grimsby, and we thank you dearly for those experiences. And not only is it our students that benefit, but we know that industry benefits as well. Carrie Stazer from John Deere was named the Outstanding Co-op Supervisor of the fall term in 2025. It's an award that we take very seriously at Brock, because the way that when our students work with you, you change their lives. You change the trajectory of where they go, what they do, and how they see work. And they see work not just as employment, but as their future. And so I thank you deeply. If we go to the next slide. Our partnership with local municipalities is one that Brock truly values. By working closely together, we're able to connect academic expertise and community needs, supporting workforce development and innovation across Niagara. It's a relationship built on trust and shared purpose that delivers lasting impact. There are a number of pictures up here from our Master of Sustainability program alongside a small group of Brock faculty management team that visited Escarpment Renewables, a biogas company here in Grimsby. And then there's some pictures from our Evening of Brilliance, where Mayor Jordan was there along with Sarah Kim. And in the bottom, we have some other pictures when Grimsby Economic Development toured that institute that I mentioned previously called VPMI, and along with our Cool Climate Grape and Wine Institute. And then bottom left, the town of Grimsby partnered with the Goodman Group to deliver leadership development programs focused on strengthening collaboration and team performance. And if we go to the next slide, one of the things that's really important about an institution such as Brock, when you turn 60 years old, you really do have to evaluate. And I say that from personal experience this year, but you do have to really evaluate what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. So as Brock looked to the future, we embarked upon a strategic planning session, or we created a new strategic plan, and we are guided by a deep belief that meaningful progress happens when people come together around a common purpose and value. Or set of shared values. What we did, we asked the community, we had over 3,000 points of reference. We asked everybody, both on campus and off campus, what is it that Brock does? Why is Brock unique? What is it that it delivers? And we heard it in different ways, but the message was the same. Transforming people and reimagining the future is what Brock does here in Niagara. And so we are a comprehensive institution, and what that means is we bring research and education together in a comprehensive way, and we do it with accessibility in mind and with both the social, economic, and environment well-being of this community in front of everything that we do. And so in the next slide, these are the 4 pillars of our strategic plan. Obviously, we're an academic institution. If we didn't have research and discovery and knowledge in one of the pillars, we would be some other industry. So we did have to stay true to who we are, and one of our pillars is advancing research and discovery. Building sustainable futures. Now, this is not just our environmental future, this is the future of our students, sustaining the workforce, sustaining our own institution financially, which is why we have futures pluralized. That's it, I'll get it. And then obviously, people are at the heart of what we do. So realizing that you matter is the 3rd pillar. People, not just our students, but our faculty, staff, our community members, people are the engine that keeps us going. And bringing the world to Brock and Brock to the world is our commitment to ensuring that we have and reflect the diverse community that is here in Niagara, that we act as an attractant for workforce development. And so bringing Brock to the world and the world to Brock is not just about bringing people here, but ensuring that wherever I go in the world and our alumni are active in the world, Brock University is known and its reputation is a good one. So every one of these priorities obviously relies on deep collaboration beyond our campus border. And if we go to the next slide, these are just some pictures to really highlight our commitment to community-focused programming throughout Niagara. BFIT in the Canada Games Park, does anybody use BFIT? If you haven't, you need to come and check it out. It's an amazing exercise facility and wellness facility. Support for our agribusiness sector with our grape and wine, and also we have just put out an announcement on the groundbreaking on our experimental farm that we're building on the Merrittville Highway. And through partnerships like Willow Arts Community and the Marilyn I. Walker School of the Fine and Performing Arts, where creativity, expression, and healing bring Niagara voices to the foreground. And others, we have many MOU partnerships, and the one in the picture is our partnership with Bethesda. So the final slide is my thank you. Thank you for listening this evening. Thank you for supporting Brock. Thank you for being a part of our community. And I just wanted to the last thing I'd like to say is Brock was created to serve Niagara. We collaborate with municipalities like Grimsby because it remains central to who we are and how we work. Because of these challenges and opportunities, or because of the challenges and opportunities that we continually face, we know that when we share the solutions together, when we work on the solutions, they are better, stronger, and they make our community come together. So thank you so much for the time this evening. And Mayor, if there is time, I'm happy to take any questions. If not, you know where to find me.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation, Leslie. And it's hard to believe it's 60 years. And we certainly really enjoy working together with Brock, and our collaboration is something that we hope to even expand on over the years. So questions from council? Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. Just a question on if you have any ideas for future programs where we might be able to entice you to come here, to Grimsby specifically.
I think those are great conversations for us to have. You know, the community-based programming, we have our professional continuing studies, and that working with the Goodman Group was an example of that. I know that as we develop the agro sector and the notions of food security, obviously we have healthcare, education, and sports management, just to name a few. But it depends on the needs, it depends on the kind of programming. But I think the way that we operate right now is we are very nicely, I would say, incorporated into all the municipalities in Niagara. And so those partnerships to us are important. And so developing them it has to be something that's responsive to the needs of someone like Grimsby. So.
Sorry, through Mayor. Just as an aside, I've often mentioned Brock University for the sport management program, and I'm a grad, so I have a deep respect for that program. And I feel we could use your assistance even more so on the sponsorship front for a lot of these programs. So I would like to see more sport management grads here. I think you guys would be an asset for sure. So thank you.
They're the grads that I have to take my ring off my left hand or my right hand when they come across, because they grip their handshake is so hard.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Dr. Rigg. When you said Brock was created to serve Niagara, I'm a teacher during the day, and we all know that having a local university and college is really important for the local economy, obviously, for the entire region. Education costs have gone up exponentially since I graduated from high school. I don't want to talk about how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago. And I know students that come from all over the province, all over the country, and all over the world to come to Brock. But I think that one of the most important things that you do is offering a local university for students, because that means, because I teach at-risk youth during the day, and it makes university, despite the fact that it's not affordable anymore, not like when you and I graduated from university, but more affordable and more accessible, because the ability to stay at home and go to university is an important thing. So all those other great things that you do aside, having a local, and a lot of universities do those great things within their community, but it's very important for us to have one within our community. And so thank you for providing that. My first year of teaching was working with teachers who were in the first graduating classes of the University of the Teachers College at Brock. So 60 years later, some of those people are I still see them around town and see them around the community, and it's incredible that's still happening this year. So not a question, but thank you, Mayor.
Thank you
to Dr. Rigg.
Thank you for those words.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you again very much for
Thank you.
your
I tried to keep it to 5 minutes, but I may have gone long. Thanks.
That's fine. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation? Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Freg. Resolve that the delegation from Dr. Leslie Rigg be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the remaining delegations? Then we'll go up. Sorry. Never mind, I have to call them up first, so we'll go with Kevin Luchenheisen to come up to the podium first.
Respectfully, can I go later on? I'm still working on things, and I'd like to hear Harley's first.
The clerk says you're up first.
Is this on? Can everybody hear me? Through you, the mayor, my name's Kevin Luchenheisen. I'm the owner of Harmony Jewelers, now in our 51st year, downtown Grimsby. I also own several other properties and businesses and have invested heavily in this community because I care deeply about the long-term future of our town. First of all, I'm not opposed to growth. I'm not opposed to intensification. And I'm not here tonight asking council to stop development. What I'm asking is that council carefully consider whether the necessary planning framework, heritage protection, parking strategy, and broader public interest safeguards are truly in place before irreversible precedents are established at the base of the Niagara Escarpment. Because once those precedents are established, they become extremely difficult to reverse. Planning frameworks are supposed to guide development. Development approvals should not effectively establish the framework before the underlying policy work is completed. From the beginning, two of my biggest concerns with this proposal have been parking, height, and massing. The current official plan generally contemplated four-story built form along the base of the escarpment for a reason: to help preserve the visual, cultural, and historic relationship between downtown Grimsby and the Niagara Escarpment. The escarpment is not simply a backdrop to our town, it's one of the defining characters of Grimsby's identity, its character, its sense of place. In my opinion, previous councils understood the importance when those lower height permissions were originally established. I'm also deeply concerned about the long-term parking burden this proposal may create for downtown businesses and the community as a whole. This development is simply far too large for the level of parking being provided. We are already discussing the loss of additional on-street parking through Downtown Reimagined, while simultaneously approving expanded cash-in-lieu agreements and reduced parking standards before the town's broader parking framework has even been completed. Those are not theoretical parking pressures. Those vehicles will need to go somewhere. And I respectfully ask council to carefully consider the position now being taken by a coalition of 36 downtown businesses and merchants who have formally expressed concern regarding the long-term parking and business impacts associated with this proposal. These are not anti-development voices. These are businesses that form the economic backbone of our downtown core. Council should also carefully consider the removal of the originally proposed community hub public amenity within the historic Wolverton Hall structure. That publicly accessible heritage component formed part of the original public-facing justification for the project, and its removal materially changed the public benefit balance of this proposal. It is also important to recognize that if stronger parking policies, cultural heritage landscape protections, escarpment planning considerations, and broader public interest safeguards had already been fully completed and implemented before this application came forward, the review and recommendation process may have unfolded very differently. Town staff can only evaluate and defend applications based on the planning framework and policies that exist at the time the decisions are made. That is precisely why the sequencing of this work matters. Planning policies are intended to guide development decisions before major applications are approved, not after major precedents have already been established. As someone who participated in the previous OLT proceedings, one of the strongest impressions I left with was how heavily the process ultimately relied on the position and the support of town staff based on the policy framework currently in place. Once staff support exists, approvals become significantly more difficult to challenge. I also understand there are concerns regarding the potential cost of OLT proceedings if this matter is delayed or revisited. However, while those costs may amount to tens of thousands of dollars, I respectfully ask council to also consider the long-term economic and cultural costs to downtown businesses and the broader community if the wrong planning decisions are made before proper framework is in place. And this is why I would strongly urge council to seriously consider the implementation of an intern control bylaw under Section 38 of the Planning Act. An intern control bylaw would not permanently stop development. It would simply allow the town additional time to complete the necessary parking, heritage landscape, escarpment, and broader planning framework before irreversible precedents are established. I'm just about done. Importantly, interim control bylaws are recognized planning tools specifically intended to allow municipalities time to complete policy work, planning studies, and framework developed before major land use decisions proceed. This proposal has also evolved significantly from the development concept originally considered through the earlier proceedings, particularly with the respect to parking, public benefit components, the loss of the heritage hub, as well as many other things. Given the magnitude of those changes and the broader planning work still underway, I believe council has a legitimate basis to pause, complete the necessary framework, and ensure these decisions are made with the fully established planning context before permanent precedents are set. My concern tonight is not simply about one building. It's about a cumulative long-term change and ensuring that proper planning framework is in place before decisions like this may permanently alter the character and the function of downtown Grimsby at the base of the escarpment.
Thank you. Harley, well, come to the podium, please.
I was confused. I don't think that round of applause was for my entrance to the podium. Thank you, Kevin, Mayor, members of council. We're back. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to try to keep it fresh and new and put the building aside and talk about people, talk about how when we started this journey 8 years ago in assembling 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street, and subsequently 21 and 23 Elm Street, we were looking to bring something new and fresh to downtown Grimsby. We were looking to build a new form of housing to invite new types of residents to create new type of lifestyles, understanding that that downtown Grimsby was a very special place to be. And when I think about people, I think about collaboration, and collaboration that has got us here today. And it really has been a partnership with working with this community, the engagement that we've done, and with staff in tailoring this development for this site. And when I say tailoring, I mean drawing a building that responds appropriately and that is going to reach a very viable product. Delivering housing is very difficult. The town relies on the private sector to deliver housing. And as we go forward as a town, it's going to become more and more difficult as there's less and less land available, and we are left with what's called infill development. Infill development can be highly valuable in its ability to deliver housing in key nodes, but very challenged in its ability to practically be delivered. So I think when I go back and I know about collaboration, it's about leadership. And we have been on a journey where we have worked with staff, we have worked with the Niagara Escarpment Commission, we have worked with Heritage to receive the green light to move forward on this project. We have also consulted the community in 3 different engagement sessions. This is not atypical. Back in 2022, we saw a highly reactive response after staff approved that report, and I think we're back there today. And we also find ourselves in an election cycle where leadership is very important. And I don't think we're going to have the last word on this project tonight, and I'm okay with that. But the one thing that I want to acknowledge is that as we move forward and aspirational individuals step forward and speak about leadership for this town, how are we thinking about growing? How are we thinking about growth that fits? How are we thinking about responsible area to build new homes for this town? Because I think we have one of the best ones in Grimsby, and we're very proud of that. And to the council members and to the mayor tonight, I think we find ourselves in a very awkward situation where it now sits with you. Staff who are experts in this field have vetted this project, have worked with us over the course of the last year. Urban design, heritage, transportation. We have a parking study that's been peer reviewed. We have Niagara Escarpment Commission that has given us the green light. So when Kevin talks about what's the next steps under the Planning Act, we have a very strong case. We have a very strong project that holds up to the test of good planning, that is supported by experts, the town's own staff, and that has been a mountain to climb on our side, and that has been a challenge. But the bigger challenge is delivering this project, and council play a big role in that tonight. And I look forward to their leadership as we push this forward. But the work is not over. I don't think we'll have the last word tonight. But irregardless, we will continue to invest, continue to grow our aspirations in the town of Grimsby, and continue to build for people who are not here today, by the way. This building may not be for anyone in the audience or anyone here on council. But, you know, as I walked through the Peach King Center earlier today and saw the families and the opportunity, the amenity that this town has to offer, it continues to drive me in my mission to deliver new forms of housing. And I know I'm on trend. I know this will reach the audience. I know this will be an incredible success. But it's with town staff. It's with council to show the leadership to say, we are open for business. We do not need an interim control bylaw. And we do acknowledge an affordability issue, and affordable housing is important to us. So you have that power tonight to vote. You have the power to get us one step closer to getting shovels in the ground. We've already had our pre-con on as far as site plan application, and I'm willing to commit to this council that we will engage in what's called an urban design charrette with the community and stakeholders on the final look and feel of this building. We're talking about a massing of a building that's already approved at 7 stories. The final material and color will be decided at site plan, and I'm willing to continue to invest and engage with this community to push this project forward. And let's call it what it is. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver 150 new units, rental units, including 10% affordable, 15 affordable units downtown Grimsby. Or do we pause? I'll leave it with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Harley. And now we have Ann Turek. Ann, come on up.
Good evening, council residents. My name is Ann Tursick. As a resident and business owner in Grimsby, I'm here today because I care deeply about our town and the future we are shaping together. Grimsby is not just a place on a map, it's our home. It's a community defined by its character, its scale, and its connection to the escarpment that frames our daily lives. A 7-story building in the center of this town is not thoughtful growth, it's overreach. It does not belong here. It will tower over our streets, block the escarpment that defines our landscape, and permanently alter the character of a town people chose specifically because it isn't a city like that. Once it's built, that's it. There's no going back. We keep hearing the words growth, but growth without respect for place, scale, and reality isn't progress, it's carelessness. Let's talk about reality. Families today are not downsizing their lives, they're doubling up. Multi-generational living is increasing because people can't afford to live any other way. That means more cars per household, more demand, not less. And yet we're being told that 0.7 parking spaces per unit is enough. It's not. No one owns half a car. What that actually means is overflow parking, packed streets, frustrated residents, local businesses, losing access for their customers. It's not a minor inconvenience. It's a permanent problem we are choosing to create. And for what? A building that ignores the scale of this town, a design that blocks what makes Grimsby Grimsby, a plan that shifts the burden onto the people who already live here and the ones who have already invested. We're not against growth, we are against getting it wrong. Because if we get this wrong, we don't just feel it for a few years, we live with this for generations. The reduced parking standards already permitted on Grimsby on the Lake have created years of ongoing conflict, frustration, and division within the community. These issues have affected residents, businesses, condo boards, employees, and customers alike. Responsible growth means learning from past mistakes, not repeating them on an even larger scale. I speak from direct experience. I own 5 commercial properties on Winston Road and purchased 9 commercial parking spaces. The commercial units came with 0 parking. Many people may not realize that once these developments are completed and occupied, the town does not actively enforce or ensure that parking arrangements originally approved through the site plan are actually maintained. What was promised on paper is not upheld in reality. Entire sections of visitor parking that are originally designated for customers and shared use are taken away by condo boards. Parking passes have been distributed, visitor spaces become restricted, and many spots were even rented out on a monthly basis. Vehicles were routinely towed even when customers had valid permits. Decisions often came down to the discretion of a small number of individuals with unchecked control over parking enforcement, creating unhealthy hostility and tension throughout the community, quite simply an abuse of power by multiple board members. Snow removal becomes another issue. Visitor spaces were blocked for months at a time with snowbanks, reducing already limited parking. Businesses and property owners continued paying for these spaces even without the access. When these concerns were raised with the town, I was told that they were out of their control. That response was deeply concerning. Surely there should be policies and procedures in place requiring builders, condo corporations, and property managers to uphold the parking plans exactly as they were approved and presented to purchasers, residents, and business owners. Instead, once projects are completed, the control appears to shift entirely away from the town, leaving residents and businesses to deal with the consequences themselves. At another one of my properties, virtually all the customer parking was occupied daily by staff of a single business, leaving no customer parking for any of the surrounding businesses. Again, this creates ongoing conflict between businesses, frustration for customers trying to support local establishments. This is why parking matters. Parking's not just a number on a planning document. It directly affects businesses, residents, emergency access, quality of life, long-term health of our community. The reality today is that more families are living in multi-generational households because housing costs are unaffordable. Vehicle ownership is increasing, not decreasing. Pretending otherwise does not create sustainable growth. It creates permanent infrastructure problems that future residents and businesses will be forced to live with. Since when is less than the legal bylaw requirement considered acceptable planning? And where do we draw the line? If we continue to normalize approvals that fall below established standards, what comes next? Less than adequate infrastructure, less than adequate services, less than adequate building quality? We can and should expect better. Do not approve this development as it stands. The town of Grimsby deserves responsible growth that protects our community, supports local businesses, respects residents, and learns from the very real problems created by previously reduced parking developments. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the remaining delegations? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Corstangi. Resolved that the delegations from Kevin Luchenheisen, Harley Valentine, and Ann Tursick be received. All in favor? That's carried. Up next, we have chair's reports. Councillor Sharwa, can you please give your chair's report?
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. At the April 28th, 2026 meeting of Community Services Standing Committee, the committee received several information reports and considered a significant climate action initiative for recommendation to council. The committee received the Grimsby Museum information report for April. Staff highlighted a number of upcoming public programs and workshops, including cross-stitch, calligraphy, canvas, pouch printing, and the Museum Talk series. Recent events included presentations by Alan Cross and Jody Campbell, as well as Easter programming and curator talks. The committee also received updates on the traveling Cipher Decipher exhibition from the Canada Science and Technology Museum and a forthcoming community exhibition with the Grimsby Photography Club. Museum staff also reported on the launch of a new youth volunteer program for students aged 9 to 17 as part of May is Museum Month. Progress was also noted on the museum's digitization strategy, with more than 1,450 collection records now uploaded online through Past Perfect. Additional updates included educational programming in schools, museum, foundation repairs, collection, cleaning work, and successful grant applications through Celebrate Canada and Young Canada Works. The committee also heard a presentation from Aladico Consulting, Inc. regarding the town's corporate climate action plan and recommended that council approve the plan and its associated actions. The plan establishes a framework to reduce the town's 2023 greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2035. Staff advised that the town's largest sources of emissions are facilities, transportation, waste, and street lighting. The plan outlines a number of recommended actions, including procurement policy updates, a climate lens for corporate decision-making, energy efficiency, improvements in town facilities, fleet electrification, waste reduction measures, and adaptive street lighting dimming pilots. Staff noted that if fully implemented, the measures could achieve a 30 to 40% reduction in corporate greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. The report also identified potential funding opportunities from operational savings and collaboration opportunities with Niagara Region. Staff also mentioned, and I just want to highlight that this is a living document. The committee also received the Community Services Department information update for April 2026. Staff provide updates on 5 playground renewal projects scheduled for the spring and summer at Gulfwoods Park, Leawood Park, Lakewood Gardens Park, Dorchester Park, and Morocco Park. Additional improvements will include tree planting, pathways, and seating areas. The committee also heard updates regarding environmental partnerships and stewardship initiatives, including ongoing work at Grand Old Oak Park, support for Grimsby Garden Club's Elm Street Pollinator Gardens, and the upcoming community tree giveaway through the Grimsby Green Committee. Staff also reported on the Niagara River Lions Mesh Refresh Program, which included a community basketball event at Evergreens Park and an upcoming open practice event at the Peach King Center in June. Other operational updates included new downtown and Grimsby on Lake Street banners, soundproofing measures planned for Peach King Center West Pad ventilation system, recent building demolitions, delays related to the tennis club replacement project, progress on the Fire Station 1 storage garage, and ongoing work toward the library washroom renovation project. The committee also received information regarding the successful hosting of the Niagara Older Adult Alliance Spring Forum in Grimsby, plans for Community Safety Day on May 9th at Southward Community Park, which just happened, and the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding with District School Board of Niagara for continued shared use of the Smith Public School soccer fields beginning through 2031. The next Community Services Committee meeting is scheduled for May 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Up next was planning. Our last planning meeting was May 6th, 2026. We had one item on the agenda, the same item that was just here tonight, the Wolverton. We heard from Kevin Luchenheisen and Harley Valentine, and we heard from staff as well. Our next planning meeting is May 18th, 2026. Councillor DeFlavio, can you give your chair's report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, the Public Works Committee meeting was on May 7th, 2026. The first major item that we dealt with was assumption of municipal services for 314 Main Street East. The committee considered a report recommending the assumption of municipal services there. Spencer did a very eloquent job of explaining what assumption of municipal services means. For those who are new to this idea, developers are responsible for building all infrastructure in new subdivisions. That means roads, sewers, water lines, sidewalks, everything above and below ground, and they have to make sure that they meet municipal standards. And then once staff determines that they've met all those requirements and they've passed a series of tests, the town assumes those and they become the town's responsibility. So that's where we are now. This is a regular thing that we do after a subdivision's built. So staff confirmed that the developers completed all obligations under the subdivision agreement, including both primary and secondary services, and all deficiencies have been addressed following the maintenance period. I really enjoyed the fact that we continue to learn at the Public Works Committee. I think it's an important part of the committee system. And of course, once approved by council, the town assumes the responsibility for subdivision roads, sidewalks, water and sanitary and storm systems, streetlights, driveway aprons, like everything that you could think of that is owned by the town. That's all built by the developers and then taken over by the town once the construction is completed and it's assumed. There's a letter of credit that the developer has to file with from their bank that makes sure that there's money put aside in case there are deficiencies and they don't follow through on those things. And that's what is given back to the developer or released once this is completed. So that's where we are now. Next thing was the Regional Courts Intermunicipal Agreement, Amendment 3. The committee received correspondence regarding the proposed extension of the Niagara Regional Courts Intermunicipal Agreement. For some reason, for the region to be able to give out tickets, in this case, it used to be the speeding tickets at the with the cameras. Those don't exist anymore, but we still have a traffic light camera, a red light camera on Christie Street. In order for us to give out, in order for the region to give out tickets under the Vision Zero Road Safety Initiative, they need our permission. That's all this is an agreement between the town and the region in order to do that. Next was municipal road construction standard consultation. That's pretty straightforward, so I'll just skip over to new business. The Director of Public Works provided updates on the Downtown Reimagine project. That's really important. The tender's closed. I don't know, Brandon, I'm going to look at you. If you want to speak to it, where that tender process is. But the downtown project is on schedule as of the last meeting to start at the end of June, based on all of the information that we received. The Casablanca Boulevard and GO Station area work, we received an update on as well. The Kidd Avenue traffic calming, and there's an end-of-term presentation that's going to come at all these committee meetings, talking about all the things that have happened to all these committees, the things that have gone well, the things that we probably need to work on so that the next committee could take off from where we left off. And the next meeting is June 24th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. That's incorrect, actually. The next meeting is at the end of May, May 27th. I have the wrong date on there. I apologize.
You stand corrected. That's the chair's reports. First, I'd like to request a mover and seconder to approve all of the previous minutes except Resolution PD 26-017, 13 Mountain Street, 19 to 23 Elm Street from the May 6 Planning and Development minutes. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio. Seconder, Councillor Charwa. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Charwa. Resolved that the following minutes be approved. Council, April 27th, 2026. Community Services Committee, April 28th, 2026. Planning and Development Committee, May 6th, 2026, except Resolution PD 26-017. And Public Works Committee, May 7th, 2026. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Charwa has requested to lift Resolution PD 6017 from the Planning and Development Committee minutes of May 6th, and Councillor DeFlavio is seconding the motion. Councillor Charwa, please go ahead with your resolution.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify how this is done procedurally. So I was told that it's an amendment that I'm putting forward to defeat the Planning and Development Committee minutes. Is that correct?
All right, so we just need to verify that you have a seconder for this.
Councillor Flavia?
Yeah, through Mayor. So to be clear, I traditionally, as a member of council, and I've used this story before, but on my first term of council, the first time somebody brought forward a motion like this, I voted against seconding it. And then Alderman Andrewchuk and another alderman took me aside and kind of gave me heck for it, because seconding a motion doesn't mean that you support it. It means that you think that it's worthy of discussion. And I think that this is worthy of discussion. So I'm not going to vote in favor of it because of one part of it, but I do think that this is a topic that's worthy of discussion, and that's why I'm seconding the motion. So I just wanted to make it clear that seconding doesn't mean that you support the motion as written. It means that you support a discussion on the motion, and that's what I very, very strongly support here.
Yes, and I'll echo that. The true meaning of a seconder is just putting a resolution on the floor for discussion. It's as simple as that. All right, go ahead, Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. Whereas through the Ontario Land Tribunal settlement process, the town accepted a significant planning compromise for 13 Mountain Street and 19 to 21 Elm Street, OLT 22-003541, including an expansion of the development concept from the original application. And whereas the previously approved Ontario Land Tribunal settlement concept should be treated as the approved development concept for the subject lands and not as a basis for further expansion of the development envelope. And whereas the applicant remains able to pursue the previously approved Ontario Land Tribunal settlement concept, subject to any required site plan, permitting, heritage, servicing, and implementation approvals. And whereas the current application seeks additional permissions beyond the previously approved settlement concept, including the further incorporation of 23 Elm Street into the development site. And whereas council is not satisfied that the further expansion of the development envelope to include 23 Elm Street is appropriate or necessary to achieve the planning objectives for the site and surrounding context. And whereas council considers 23 Elm Street to be more appropriately considered for municipal parking or related downtown public purposes than for incorporation into the principal development envelope. Now therefore be it resolved that report PA 2612 regarding the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 13 Mountain Street and 19 to 23 Elm Street be received, and that council not approve the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment in their current form, and that staff be directed to advise the applicant that council would support proceeding with the previously approved Ontario Land Tribunal settlement concept for 13 Mountain Street and 19 to 21 Elm Street without incorporating 23 Elm Street into the principal development envelope. And further, that this direction includes exploring with the applicant the potential acquisition of 23 Elm Street by the town for municipal parking, having regard to acquisition terms, the previous transaction value, available reserves, and any other funding sources.
Thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Discussion from council. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Mayor. Are we discussing just this or the entire, just this? So I can't support the acquisition of land portion of this motion. I don't support taxpayers' dollars being used to buy land downtown without, for the same reason I'm not going to support the building as proposed. I don't think that we have a parking strategy in place downtown that shows us that this is necessary. It tells us what money we're going to put aside to buy this land. So I'm going to speak further to that when we get to the minutes, to the actual proposal. But the reason why I'm voting against it is because of that specific clause. I think it should be deferred. That's why I brought it forward previously, and I still think that this should be deferred because we received significant information today that I don't think everybody's really had a chance to filter through. So that was why I moved for the deferral earlier in the meeting. Anyway, I'll leave the rest of my comments for later on.
Councillor Sharwa.
Sir, can we get clarification on any of the new information from today, unless I've missed something?
Yeah, do you want me to answer, Mayor? We received a very
I think we'll
detailed-
ask Kirsten.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We did receive a number of questions and emails over the weekend, so staff did send out a document, a compiled Q&A document responding to those questions to all of council at 3 o'clock today. Okay, I didn't check it that time, so I'll read that later. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to, I guess, discuss why I'm going with this. So, and bear with me because I'm going to have to take some steps back. I feel very strongly that this proposal right now is a completely different proposal than what was approved at the OLT. So, and there are some steps that I'm not sure everybody even realized had kind of snuck into the document and to the process. So this is completely different. So if we were to actually look at what has been approved right now, the approval is for 13 Mountain Street, 19 and 21 Elm Street. That is it. That is all the developer is allowed to build right now. So we are making an assumption that this is, first of all, an extension, which it is not. We've lost the community hub. We've lost more parking if this goes along. This is a completely new application. So I'd like to see it be dealt with as a brand new application because it is. And I would go as far as to say that this, how did we get to this point? We got this parcel based on 13 Mountain and 19 and 21 based on a decision by council, not from the OLT, that settled it at the OLT. So again, if the developer chooses to fight this at the OLT, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get the same response because we were the ones that offered to settle. So that's a completely different thing. So I'm going to go over the timeline just to make sure that everybody is clear. And I've looked through open documents, not closed session material, just to make sure that everybody is aware. So one part of the planning, our PA 2612, it actually says, from the previous applications when explaining this, it says in 2021, applications were made for 13 Mountain Street and 19 and 21 Elm Street. I'm hoping this was an error because that's incorrect. In 2021, the applications were made for 13 Mountain Street and 19, not 21 Elm Street. So going back to the timeline, on May 20th, May 2021 was when the original application came forward. It was for 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street, and it included 74 units. In March 2022, came before council again for 19 Elm Street and 13 Mountain Street, not 21 Elm Street. On March 21st, 2022, council defeated the staff-supported OPA ZBA motion for those lands. So August 30th, 2022, the developer had appealed, went to the OLT for the first case management conference. The OLT described the appeal as redevelopment of 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street for a 7-story mixed-use building. Notice that, again, this is now for 72 units. There's no inclusion of 21 Elm Street. On November 13th, council had a special council meeting, closed session, for, and I'm referring back to the published council minutes, available to the public. It was for 13 and 19 Elm Street OLT settlement discussion. Settlement happened. A week later, the developer went back to the OLT, and the OLT states that the applications originally related to 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street, and that, I've written it right here, referring back to the OLT documents. It says, at the CMC, the applicant's counsel advised that lands at 21 Elm Street are now included, and the revised development now encompasses 13 Mountain Street and 19 and 21 Elm Street. So again, rewinding back, the original application was for 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street. There was a settlement offer. After the settlement offer by council, a week later, we go back, applicant went to the OLT, included 21 Elm Street. From that, the OLT heard the settlement And then the OLT finalized the decision, which included an expanded now application to 21 Elm Street, and it approved a 7-story proposal with 120 units. So we went from council looking at 13 Mountain Street and 19 Elm Street with 74 units to somehow having 21 Elm Street approved. And it just goes on and on from there. So, and that was for 120 units. And now we're faced with another parcel of land at 23 Elm Street, which has been acquired by the developer. And again, this is a completely different application than the one that was approved. So are we going to continue to let the applicant purchase land and then come back to us and keep maximizing this property? Because if that's the case, then we need the applicant to go and come to council with an actual new development application. And if he'd like to take a chance at the OLT, then I'm game for that, because I cannot approve this.
Kirsten, do you want and have any clarification or addition to that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff did review the history of the file. We did look at the 2024 OLT decision. I would have to go back to staff to get additional information prior to the 2024 decision. So I can't speak to that at this point in time.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, the resolution has been read. We'll vote on eScribe. Right.
It moves on, and if
Yes.
it doesn't, then we go back to the original motion, additional discussion.
Right. So if this motion's approved, everything else is defeated. If this motion's defeated, we move back to the original discussion. Councillor Howe.
Through you, Chair. Just one question, just so I understand. Castle Point, and I'm assuming it's Castle Point, who bought 23 Elm Street in good faith, but we're telling them now that they shouldn't buy it, or I'm a little twisted when we start telling somebody that they can't do something without, if there's a process, but.
Councillor Howe, I think Kirsten can answer that for us.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the application before us is 13 Mountain and 19 to 23 Elm. Staff have reviewed the application in full and have made a recommendation on all 4 parcels. So it is in private ownership. 23 Elm is in private ownership and is part of this application before you this evening.
Thank you. If council's clear right now, we can vote on this resolution on eScribe, please. All right, that's defeated. All right, now can I have a mover and seconder for bylaw number 20?
Sorry. You said we. Through the chair, so we're back to the original motion as written in the Planning and Development Committee meeting minutes, which is that the staff memorandum be received and that bylaws 26, 27, and bylaw 26, 28 be forwarded to council for approval. So council can either vote to approve the minutes as written, vote to amend them in some way, or vote to defeat them in some way. Those are the options available to council right now.
All right, so you heard the clerk, so is there any discussion on this? Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. So I think that there are some misconceptions out there that have kind of been addressed tonight, but haven't fully been addressed. So this is not starting from zero. You know, our planner made that very clear. And so some people have the misconception that we're talking about 7 stories, but 7 stories were already approved. They already have permission through the OLT settlement for 7 stories. I didn't vote in favor of it, and that doesn't matter. It was approved. The decision established like site-specific zoning rules for the properties. So this proposal is building on that framework rather than reopening the entire height question. I think that I also, so I'm torn because I think increasing our rental property inventory is important. I think that the 10% of the affordable housing portion is very important. I just don't think we have it right yet. That's the only reason I'm voting against it. In simple terms, the site's already been approved, has an approved planning foundation. So what's changed in this proposal, some of the things have been discussed. The application expands to 23 Elm, which is a pretty significant, but not, I mean, from a massing perspective, I don't know how significant it is. It maintains most of the existing site-specific zoning provisions. It introduces updates like details, especially for the parking contribution. So council's reviewing and expanding the site within an existing approved context is what's important. We're not starting from scratch. I'm not comfortable with the parking policy. That's why I'm going to vote against it. The strategic parking management study is still ongoing. The formal cash and lieu framework has not yet been completed as a standalone policy. I'm not comfortable with it the way that it's written so far. The current approach is based on comparative research and consultant input, yes. But we're kind of applying an emergency policy here, approach that still has to be finalized, and I'm not comfortable with that. The cash in lieu valuation I'm not comfortable with. I don't think $25,000 per space is an adequate amount. Ironically, the developer's own purchase of property downtown has kind of established the value of property downtown and gives us a framework from which to build our valuation of parking spots. And that purchase has shown us that land is very expensive in the downtown. It's finite. There's not a lot of land downtown. And that land has a lot of value, and therefore that parking has a lot of value. So a $25,000 parking spot is not adequate to replace the parking that's being used up, in my opinion. This is all in my opinion. Structured parking costs are not being used because the study doesn't identify an immediate need for parking structure. The study that was done so far doesn't identify an immediate need. It doesn't look into the future yet because it's not complete. So the key question for council tonight is not whether the parking is needed today, but whether the valuation approach that we're looking at is the right long-term standard for a constrained downtown. And the downtown is clearly constrained. What we're not doing tonight, we're not relitigating the OLT decision because that's already a decision that's been made. We're not reopening the approval of height permissions because 7 stories has already been approved. We're not debating whether cash and lieu should exist as a tool because we've already said that cash and lieu is acceptable. Now, when I say we, I'm not saying me. I'm saying we as a council have already established that cash and lieu is an accepted policy. So we already said it's okay. We cannot go back on that. We're not deciding whether downtown parking supply is currently adequate because Our staff has in their report said there's adequate supply right now. The matters are already based on previous decisions. What we're actually considering is whether the expanded site and updated elements align with existing approvals, whether the emerging cash in lieu valuation framework is sufficiently complete and defensible to become a long-term standard. I don't think it is. I don't think it's adequate to become a long-term standard. Whether council is comfortable applying that framework before the broader parking policy is finalized. The policy framework is not completed. Are we comfortable with making a decision before that policy is completed? I am not. That's why I'm voting against this. This is it's largely a governance and policy timing question, not a yes or no question, because I think the answer is kind of already yes, unfortunately. Okay, so that ship has sailed. So we need to consider, is the valuation approach intended as a permanent downtown standard or an interim step? Would finalizing the parking strategy first provide clear or long-term consistency? I'm almost done, I swear. Does council have sufficient time and information to establish what could become a precedent? I don't believe in the word precedent, but I think that when we say $25,000 for a parking spot, that's a pretty clear number that we're establishing as a precedent. And I don't think that we have adequate information, and I'm not comfortable with what we've received so far to vote in favor of it based on that. And that's why I'm going to be voting against this tonight. Not because I think that we're going to overturn this, not because I think that that 7 stories is too high, because all that is true. I think 7 stories is too high, but that ship has sailed. What we're talking about now is, are we ready to move forward? And I don't think we are. So that's why I'm voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Councillor Corstangi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I was reading the parking study done by the consultant, and it recommended cash in lieu, and the old official plan, I think, says cash in lieu too. But what I wanted to ask Brendan, just verify, one of the recommendations to increase the parking was the reconfiguration of the town parking lots, and it does say 30 additional spaces in the Balsam lot, 20 additional spaces in Elizabeth lot, and 20 additional spaces in the Lions pool parking. So that's 70 additional spaces. Is the cash in lieu going to be used towards that to create 70 additional spaces that will actually increase the parking in the community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I think that's correct. Basically, the study had identified, we're currently in the 3rd phase of the study. Through that study, we've created some preliminary concept plans, which have identified somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 parking spaces in the downtown area. That's Elizabeth Street parking lot, that's the north lot, the south lot, the Lions pool. All together, we can accommodate an additional 100 parking spaces. So the idea behind the cash in lieu of is that value that we're collecting from the developer would be then used to help fund that work.
Thank you. And that pretty much is something that is being directed for us to do regardless. So it would be at the taxpayer expense without, or completely at the taxpayer expense without the cash in lieu.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's preliminary to say what the funding mechanisms will be. I think it is fair to say this money that is being received cash in lieu of will help offset those costs from whatever sources. But you're right, a potential source is revenue from taxes.
Councillor Sharwell.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. When I had seen this, when it first came through the Planning and Development Committee, there were a number of concerns, even in relation to height with the mechanical penthouse was over what it was supposed to be. But I'm not gonna get into any of that because I don't see that really going anywhere today. So I'm just gonna focus on the parking. $25,000 parking space is obviously way too little for cash in lieu. We don't even know where these spaces are going to be. So that's it's still not finalized. We still don't necessarily know. When I was looking through this planning study as well, or the some of the defense points by the applicant. It had said that there was justification for the visitor parking spaces based on, and I'm going off the top of my head right now because I do remember it. It was based on 5 different developments that the applicant had chosen. 4 of them were in Grimsby. 1 of them was in Beamsville. I don't know why there was a Beamsville one even included. So first of all, first problem I saw, the 4 in Grimsby were fine. The 5th one, that was a DeSantis condo in Beamsville that was really irrelevant, skewed the numbers completely because there was quite a bit more parking than there should have been. The dates for the that were collected for the parking had fell on the Family Day weekend. It was the weekend before that. It was one of the first weeks that it was quite extreme temperatures in Grimsby. So that could have affected the parking. The week after that was also collected was the Family Day long weekend. Kids were off of school on Friday. As you know, a lot of families are out of town on those days, which could have also changed the ratios used to justify the parking, which I think is significant because this is a massive impact on the businesses, on the residents that choose to use the downtown on a regular basis. And another thing that is constantly brought up is that this is going to be a walkable community, which I agree, people will walk, but that doesn't mean that for every apartment, people aren't going to own more than one car. If you park a car and it sits there for a month, it doesn't matter. You're still taking up a parking space. It doesn't matter if you are moving from here to Toronto to commute for a job. You still are taking up that parking spot. You are still making it unavailable for people that would frequent the area. So I am adamantly opposed to this. I have, as a resident before I was on council, I do not believe that this is the same application extended because it is not the same application. The last application, it absorbed parking. At this point now, we're moving into taking municipal parking, which I 100% am opposed to. So that's just my 2 cents. It's unfortunate that council had chosen to decline my motion to potentially acquire that 23 Elm, but anyhow, I'm opposed.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just a clarification, and probably, Kirsten, probably from yourself. At site plan, can any of these issues be brought up and massaged and clarified or changed slightly at site plan, as opposed to going back over the whole birth of the thing? But you see what I'm saying? Or is it possible, or can it be done at site plan?
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the site plan process would follow a zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment, so the land use permissions would be in place. However, at the site plan stage, we would be looking at more detailed technical analysis of the site. So details regarding entrance permits, the materials being used for the building, landscaping, the parking arrangements within the parking area would all be determined through the site plan process. Within the memo that was provided to Planning and Development Committee, there is a list of site plan matters that would be reviewed based on both the official plan and staff's review of the applications. So that includes green infrastructure, heritage matters. That's also reviewed through a heritage permit process that would come through the site plan process, site servicing, entrance permits, right-of-way design, and finalizing the parking configuration.
Clarify. Mayor, can you just clarify through you, sorry, that site plan is staff only though, and this is the last opportunity for council to deal with this if it's voted on and approved tonight?
Exactly, and to further to that, I do agree with Councillor Charwa that this isn't the same as what the previous council approved in 2022. It's a site plan issue, but I would much rather see a building that was more step back, like we have down at Grimsby on the Lake. Aquazul is a step back building. I think that would be a lot more compatible at the escarpment, and I realize these are site plan issues, but definitely the massing of that building as a straight wall just does anything but blend into the escarpment. And it's just not the same issue, or not the same building that was there that we approved in 2022. And there was an actual application in 2017 that the previous council then actually accepted for 6 stories. So historically, that 7-story with 72 units in 2022 is, in my opinion, a completely different iteration than we see today here in 2026. Oh, sorry, Don, I interrupted you.
But just to be clear, and Nick, you suggested that that's a staff, site plan's a staff. But if staff have the marching orders to deal with that site plan, this is what we want as the council. We're not saying it in the meetings. To have those instructions, with the massing and the soft and the coloring and all that. I get that. But is that a possibility? To get at it again at the site plan, but with the marching orders very clearly.
Kirsten, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through the changes that were made to the Planning Act through Bill 109, site plan is delegated to staff for approval. As mentioned earlier, and also within some of the comments that were made through the delegation, we have encouraged the applicants to go through a design charrette. So that would be an opportunity to invite the public, invite the experts to provide input on the design of the building. So that could come up, or that could be a process through the site plan application. Staff could also share information via information reports to council, and the heritage permit process would be coming also before council through the Heritage Committee.
Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
To follow up. So the shred, I'm thinking of what we had a couple of years ago downtown, and we had it in, the old hardware store, and it was all laid out on the floor, and everybody was very happy with the whole process. Anybody that was involved in it and went to it and commented, and the comments that came from it were certainly well thought. Is that like the shred? Is that what you're describing of what we did before, or is that called a PIC or something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe that was for the official plan. So I think it was a bit bigger of a project that we were looking for input, but we can determine what the details of that charrette are and report back to council at a later date. I don't have the details of what we would be looking at for that process at this time.
Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I know this isn't going to be popular, and this is not what anybody wants to hear, but I'm voting in favor of this development, and I'll explain why to the community and to my colleagues here. Is like it was mentioned, 7 stories and 120 units is already approved. That's happening. As a born and raised resident, do I want to see 7 stories in downtown? No, absolutely not. But this is the reality that we're at right now. The new official plan is going to allow up to 12 as it stands right now. I don't want to see that either. This, to me, is an extension of what's already approved onto another property. It's going to add 30 more units, 15 residential and 15 affordable units. That is a desperate need in our community, and I can tell you that I canvassed at every single door in Ward 3, and we need rental, and we need affordable rental, and we need housing for our seniors as they age in our community. The 2021 census had 43% of our community over 50 years old. We need to be prepared for what's coming at our door. If this goes to the OLT and a higher height will be asked for, the data, which we hear from staff and consultants that we paid and we hired, support this. They support the parking, they support the process of it. So we jeopardize minimizing it at 7. So I know that, people will say this is political suicide, you're not going to get elected again. So be it. You know what? I'm going to do what's in the best interest of our community. I'll sacrifice my own personal goals for that. That's okay. But I honestly believe that this is the right thing to do at this point, given the data that we have, everything that's been provided. I believe that this is the right decision.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. I've been listening to all of this, and I look at, we're getting 100 new spots paid for. We're getting 15 low-income units that don't exist anywhere. There's been no rental housing built in the last 40 years. And there are a lot of seniors, and you say over 50, I looked at over 55. Over a third of our population is over 55. Not everybody wants to live in a house. Some people, as they age, want to stay in the community, but be able to have a place they can just shut the door and go and not worry about it. And we need to be able to provide that kind of accommodation for seniors. We also have young people starting out who don't have enough money for a down payment on a home. They want to stay in the community. They want to be maybe near their families. Yet there's nowhere for them to go. I mean, there's just nothing out there. And over the past 4 years, the province has brought in a number of changes. And I don't know how many of you realize, but municipalities are a function of the province. Like, we serve at the pleasure of the province. So we don't have the flexibility to say, okay, province, you're saying we have to have so many more people come here. We need to have so many new building starts. We can't say them, oh, take it elsewhere. We can't. Like, we don't have that flexibility. It's not a possibility for us. And, what we have here is a developer who's from the community, wants to work with community, is bent over backwards to work with the community, is willing to have another charrette, which is, bringing people in for their comments to see, what they think of this. There's a whole other piece of this project that hasn't even started yet. And I know people say, well, it's 7 stories. Well, it's going to be 7 stories unless we send them back to OLT, and the OLT is a provincial body, and they'll tell them, please don't stop at 7. We need the housing. You can go up to 8, 9, 10. He started at 10. He came down to 7. A lot of how this building is going to look will depend on the materiality of how we build this building, and the things that we see now, it's a massing. It's just like a blot, and it doesn't tell us what it's going to look like, because we can make something, we have the opportunity to make something really fantastic and a place for people to live in Grimsby, low-income housing, so that some people can find their way in and maybe out of low-income housing. If we send this back, we just need to be pragmatic here. If we send this back, we run the risk of getting less than what we have now, and, so far we've had a developer who's trying to work with us, and so much of this project is already approved. The OLT will never say, oh, sorry, forget 7, no more than 4. Not going to happen. We're living in a different reality now. It's completely different. And the levers, what levers we have now is to work with the developer and get the developer to build a beautiful building. That's the levers that we have now. So, we can either alienate the developer and have him go off and to OLT, because OLT, the developers win 98% of the time. Okay, and we have everything going against us if we took this to OLT, because staff say this is all in line with all provincial policy and our policies. So let's just be pragmatic here, recognize that there is a huge need for this kind of housing. The world is changing. My husband says to me, I used to come down from Kemp Road driving my grandfather on the tractor to pick him up in the tractor when he had too much to drink in the bar. Those days are gone, and it's just the reality. So for all of these reasons, I am voting in favor of this project.
Councillor Fake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Vardy. I was going to stay out of this debate, but I'm not, and I don't want to be a hypocrite by staying out of it. I'm really in favor of this development. I think it's got a lot to offer this town. Let me look at it from an economic development perspective. Excuse me? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, we're not taking questions, and please just maintain decorum in the audience.
So we, in the next 3 to 4 years, are going to attract up to 1,000 jobs into this community. They're new jobs. And that doesn't count the jobs that are going to be created while they build some of these industrial and commercial buildings across the service road. Those people who come here to work in those facilities are going to need a place to live. They're going to be young people. Young people who come from the universities, from Hamilton, from further afield, and they will probably eventually want to live where they work and work where they live. That's not too much to ask. I spoke to a number of senior citizens in the last week or two, some of them in this audience, and they have kids living at home that can't afford to buy a house. So they want to sell their house and move into a rental so that their kids can have their house, or maybe even get a rental, which right now they can't get. So this is, Councillor Vardy's right, this is a whole new world we live in. We're either going to adapt to it, or we'll just get left behind, or the town will die. This particular mass of people who are going to be living downtown, along with Century Condos, are going to be supporting the businesses downtown, not the other way around. They're going to walk out their door, walk over to Teddy's and walk over to Harmony Jewelers, and they're going to walk over to all the other places, not take their car, which will be parked in their designated parking space, and buy things and add to the economy of downtown. Don't you get that? Does anyone get that? And then we got these affordable housing units, which we badly, badly need. We fought through the last term of office to get rental units built in this community, and they're finally coming. And now we're saying no to them. And we got this specific group that just dug their heels in and just can't see the big picture and can't see the future picture for Grimsby. Grimsby's got to grow up. We got to expand. We got to move. Otherwise, we just become another town with tumbleweeds blowing through it. Come on. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next generation, because it's coming. The GO train is coming. That's going to bring people here. Eventually, we're going to have conventional transit across the region. That's going to be here. We need this type of accommodations, and we need them now. Not even 3 or 4 years. We need them now. So hopefully we can get enough support to get this through. And because we spent a lot of time on it. Staff,
have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours looking at this particular project, talking to all the different agencies outside of Grimsby, from the NEC to the fire to the heritage and everyone else. And they have gone through it 3 and 4 and 5 times, and they still come up with the same answers. This is good for Grimsby. All those agencies have approved it. They're okay with it. So let's be okay with it. Let's move on. We need it. So let's move on to the next step. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I call the question? Well, everyone's had one
Some
chance.
people have had 2, some people have only had 1.
Really?
Really?
No.
Councillor DeFlavio has his hand up right now.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief, I promise. I'm not opposed to development, but Grimsby was fine before this development came through, and it'll be fine if this development doesn't come through. So it's important that we get this right. The discussion of the charrette has occurred multiple times. It's important for people to understand that neither the developer nor our planner is bound by anything that comes out of that charrette. The charrette is it's a really good tool for planning, but this is our last chance to inform this process as a council. This is it. If we decide in favor of this tonight, this is our last decision on this project as it stands as a council. So it doesn't need to consider just this project. It needs to, the argument that I made about this repeatedly is if we had 3 projects all with deficiencies in parking here tonight at the same time, not just one, would we make the same decision? Because the 30 additional spots that I've heard about in the downtown don't matter. They really don't. Those are 30 spots that we could create and we probably need anyway. They only matter if they're going to be there for every development that comes after this, and they will not. They will cover what's deficient in this development. So I think that we have to vote no tonight. Again, I think a deferral is the more appropriate way to do this, not voting no. I think a deferral is a more appropriate way of doing this because I think we need more information. I think we need to have clearer policies before making a decision. Not that we're going to say no to this, because I think in the end we're going to have to say yes. That's it. Sorry. I said I'd keep it brief. I don't think I did. I apologize.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. A few questions to planning first. First, I'll just talk about the charrette. So charrette is lovely. However, I will say as a resident before I was on council and as a councillor, this has received the most pushback from residents and by our businesses than any other development, by far. I think it's an insult when councillors say that, you know, this is some kind of a NIMBYism type thing, because it is absolutely not. Anyhow, there doesn't seem to be any issue as far as building in by the GO train that we don't necessarily even have yet.
Sharwa, there's been a point of order raised. I'm going to let Councillor Sharwa continue.
Thank you. So there hasn't been any issues.
I just denied it. So she's moving on.
Okay, so there hasn't been any issues as far as building near, you know, Casablanca or more densified areas. There has been some resistance to the downtown, which I support as well. I agree. I think it's way too dense in that area, and this is specific to this development. We've seen this development start on 2 plots of land at 13 Mountain and 19 Elm Street for 74 units. That was the first time. And then he came back, purchased one other, acquired another parcel of land at 21 Elm, and it became 120. And then he came back again at 23 Elm and is now asking for 150. So this is the 3rd time. Will we, and I'm going to ask you, Kirsten, if you can clarify, is there anything that will stop this so that the developer can't purchase another plot of land and come back and push for an even bigger parcel? So that's my first question. The second question is, if the developer sells the property, how do we have it in writing for affordable housing? Or if another developer purchases this property, is that basically a handshake and just an informal agreement?
Thank you for the questions, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess the first response to your question about whether or not that he can come in with another application. The town is required to accept planning applications, so those applications have to be accompanied by studies that support the proposal before you, and we go through typically a pre-consultation process that would outline those studies that would be needed, and we would provide some preliminary feedback on a proposal based on policy, provincial and local policy. So we can't deny an application, or like receiving an application, I should say. We do have to accept it and process it and bring it forward for a public meeting through the regular planning process. The second question, the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment stays with the land. It doesn't, it's not changed when if a property changes hands. The affordable parking rate is solidified by the zoning with a definition for affordable units. So that rate is only applied if there is affordable units proposed within the development. There is the subsequent site plan process. Staff have reviewed all of the documentation based on the proposal before you. There would have to be subsequent review if the proposal changed.
So, sorry, last question, Kirsten. How did this come through this process and not through a totally separate new application? How did this evolve to an extension, considering the original application was for 74 units on 2 parcels of land, and now we're at 4, and really it was that first application that this all came from, and now we're on the 4th lot.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is a new application before you this evening, but it does not remove the fact that there is an OLT decision for 3 of the 4 parcels. So that decision amended the official plan to allow for 7 stories on 13 Mountain and 19 to 21 Elm, and provided that site-specific zoning. So that is approved through the Ontario Land Tribunal. That is now within our official plan and within our zoning bylaw. The application before you this evening does include that 4th parcel at 23 Elm. So it is a new application. It is up to council. However, that does not change the fact that they already have an OLT decision on those parcels.
I'm going to have to call the question. I think it's ridiculous. You're welcome.
Does anyone else want to speak before we call the question?
So this is what you're reading.
Yeah.
I think we got this.
Yeah. All right.
Do we need clarification?
No. Moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the balance of the minutes from Planning and Development Committee, May 6, 2026 be approved. E-scribe vote, please. It's the one item that was lifted. Right.
Through the chair, you are voting on approving the minutes in planning and development as written. If it gets approved, we move on and we approve the bylaws. If this gets defeated, we move on to a different motion that would then need to defeat the bylaws.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you ask Councillor Bradzi as well?
All right, that's approved.
So then just that one there.
Can I have a mover and seconder for the bylaw number 2627 and 2628? Moved by Councillor Corstangi, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 2627 and 2628, and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor?
Sorry, which, is this for the amendments?
bylaws.
Okay, can we get a recorded vote as well? This is for Mountain Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, a recorded vote.
Recorded vote's been asked for. All right, that's approved. All right, now we move to a mover and seconder for the right-of-way bylaw report on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Corstangi, second by Councillor Howe. Henry, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So the report in front of you today, report BYL 26-03, covers the ask for council through a resolution on October 20th, 2025, asking for a possible right-of-way bylaw. So contained within the report itself, attached as Appendix A, is the draft right-of-way bylaw. So staff across multiple departments reviewed the needs for the town of Grimsby and reviewed other municipalities within the region and outside of the region itself on what the best possible solution was for the town of Grimsby for our possible right-of-way bylaw. So the bylaw goes into detail about potential prohibitions for activities that occur on the right-of-way or any actions that occur within the right-of-way that also require a permit from the Director of Public Works. With that bylaw, we also have an amendment attached as Appendix B. That is an amendment to our administrative monetary penalty system, making set fines for this bylaw itself, a tiered penalty system that would encompass town staff utilizing education first and giving orders to comply or verbal direction prior to any fines or any work or removal of items. The bylaw does go in detail about the need to remove items prior to any of those if those items may pose a hazard to public safety and or a safety to the public itself. In conclusion, town staff recommend the approval of bylaw 2630, which is the right-of-way bylaw, and bylaw 2631, which is the amendment to the administrative monetary penalty system bylaw. If council has any questions, I'm willing to take them at this time.
Thank you very much, Henry. Questions from council? I think we're all questioned out. Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Does this refer to various obstructions like hockey nets on the road and basketball nets, those kinds of things?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. So anything that is placed within the right-of-way that is not permitted to be there would essentially be covered under this bylaw and then would involve the same process to either remove or order the individuals who own it to remove it from the road or the boulevard, which is inclusive of the apron and the grassy boulevards going from the edge of the roadway to the property lines.
Seeing no further questions, moved by Councillor Corstangi, second by Councillor Howe, resolve the report BYL 26-03 right-of-way bylaw dated May 11th, 2026 be received, and that council approve bylaw number 26-30 right-of-way and bylaw number 26-31 AMPS amendment attached to this report is Appendix A and Appendix B. All in favor? That's carried. All right, up next we have conference updates. Councillor DeVoldy, you want to go first? Then we'll have Councillor Howe and Councillor Corstangi.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Councillor Howe, a senior member of our staff, and myself had the opportunity to attend the Ontario Small Urban Municipal Conference that goes by the acronym of OSUM in Parry Sound at the end of April. We thought it would be beneficial to share with our fellow councillors and residents what we heard and learned at the conference, and in that way, the benefits of attending would be multiplied beyond just the three of us. We had an opportunity to walk the waterfront and downtown and hear from their planning and ECDEV staff about what they've done and are hoping to do. A downtown that has been revitalized and goes through a tremendous ebb and flow when the cottagers return each year. They too have brownfields that are now under development and will create a hotel, more residential housing. Lesson learned, they too are grappling with change and are learning to welcome it. The town of Parry Sound has a number of First Nations around it. They have and continue to develop a very strong relationship with them, especially in the area of social services. Our lesson learned from this, relationships matter. With each other, with the land and with the water, talking to each other and often in an informal setting. We heard from both the District of Parry Sound Social Services as well as St. Thomas Elgin Social Services, which is in a different part of our province, and they're expecting to have eliminated homelessness by 2027. AMO has prepared a very full report on homelessness in this province. It's available on their website. We do encourage you to go and read it. Our lesson learned from this, data-driven, you have to be kind and show people respect, and it takes time to build trust. The president of AMO and a number of their staff spoke and shared a list of current and hot topics they're working on as they represent the municipalities of Ontario. You wouldn't even have to guess at them, as we too face many of them every day. Building homes, homelessness, infrastructure, development charges, electricity and power needs, trades and tariffs, conservation, codes of conduct. Our takeaway, local leadership matters, and we are not alone in this. Their website has so much on it, including webinars about running in municipal elections too. A topic that one might think isn't ours, and yet it is, and that's public health. Downloading of provincial responsibilities, provincial funding not keeping up with inflation, and thus pushing more of the costs onto local municipalities. Sound familiar? The role of our public libraries and how they play a quiet and complementary role in our health. Lessons learned from this, good public health initiatives quietly prevent problems. Efforts to reduce smoking have taken years and yet have yielded tremendous benefits, as an example. Building physical activity into each day, providing access to healthier foods, vaccinations, and making our libraries public and civic spaces. Public libraries are now much more than a building full of books. New approaches to pay for growth infrastructure. In Ontario, we are facing a number that is between $250 and $290 billion in infrastructure over the next decade. Municipalities have implemented infrastructures, just as we have done, to build up the reserves. And as an example, Parry Sound's infrastructure levy is 1.8% annually. But they're investigating other ways as well. So using a concept called delivery service charges for water and wastewater rather than traditional development charges, financing projects through the Building Ontario Fund, which I had not heard of till we were there, rather than traditional debentures, and even using private financing. And last but not least, as there were so many good topics and speakers that we haven't even shared with you this evening, but this one is particularly near and dear to us. Municipal governance and leadership, leading with respect, strong mayor powers. The speaker took us from the beginning of the Premier's thinking with quotes from from the Premier's book, published in 2016, that is called Ford Nations, Two Brothers, One Vision. And I had to go and get it after I heard the speaker. To quote from the book, and this is an accurate quote, "If I ever get to the provincial level of politics, municipal affairs is the first thing I would want to change. I think mayors across the province deserve stronger powers. One person in charge with veto power." In the book, he goes on to say, similar to the city of New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and so on. through to his reason, and some may call it his excuse, of putting strong mayor powers in to address the housing shortage. Was he just looking for an excuse? And then the speaker took us through a series of legislative changes in this area. Lessons learned: Ontario has 444 municipalities. 216 of them now have strong mayor powers. Nowhere else in Canada. We no longer need a bylaw to enact a budget. But what if council doesn't pass the levy bylaw? Then no power to tax, as in we cannot send out the property tax bills. So even sometimes what seems the most boring of bylaws now has significant reasons. How much further the province has taken the strong mayor powers than dealing only with housing. It's a big list that he shared with us. And by the way, the AMCTO, which is the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario, has published a good timeline on the budget process if anyone is interested in looking at the details. The evidence to date. A study was done by Alana Del Greco, who now works for the AMCTO, and published, and to quote from her study, looking at Ontario's housing supply tracker, there is no evidence to suggest that the use of strong mayor powers is helping to build housing, end of quote. Last thought before I turn it over to Councillor Howe to just add a few additional thoughts, but the information and the speaker's thoughts were so powerful and blunt that the slide deck is not available on the OSAM conference website. You had to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeVoley. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chair. OSAM Conference 2026 notes. On the opening day, I attended the Planning Canada's Second Deep Geological Repository for a 2-hour workshop presented by the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. The first repository that they had picked, was selected in 2024 after a siting process that started in 2010. So 14 years to get from start to finish. And that is located in St. Ignace in Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation in northwest Ontario. The other community considered was Huron-Kinloss, which is Wingham, in southwestern Ontario. Siting process involves an informed and willing host, promotes reconciliation, safety to manage Canada's nuclear waste, which includes the equipment and parts involved in the generation of electricity, isotopes, think medical, spent rods. Make no mistake that this process is important to small urban municipalities, as the sites being considered are not going to be cities. The presentation, community innovators, builders, and municipal partners was about libraries. And being on the library board was one I anticipated in attending. It reinforced my thoughts about our library. Some terms used were the library is a core civic infrastructure, an everyday civil space, cornerstone of community well-being and support. And a quote from Albert Einstein, the only thing you need to know is the location of the library. The conference allows the opportunity to have direct conversations with councillors and mayors of municipalities that are not that different from our Grimsby. My main takeaway from those conversations, from the attendees, strong mayor's powers are wrong and an assault on democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I was honored to attend the 2026 Annual Conference of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative in Hamilton, alongside municipal, Indigenous, industry, and environmental leaders committed to protecting one of our region's most valuable resources, our fresh water. This year's discussions around the Fresh Coast Economic Corridor reinforce an important message. The future of our communities depend on safeguarding the Great Lakes while building sustainable economic growth. Fresh water is not only essential to our environment and quality of life, but also to long-term health, prosperity, and resilience of communities across the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence region. Key conversations focused on protecting and restoring our freshwater ecosystems, strengthening regional collaboration on water stewardship, building a resilient economy connected to the Great Lakes, ensuring future generations continue to benefit from clean, accessible water. So as municipalities, we all share a responsibility to advocate for policies and partnerships that protect our freshwater resources while supporting strong, sustainable communities. I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring these conversations back to our community. And, a few, from the smallest little thing that we spoke about was invasive species and the importance of having a boat wash. Because invasive species are spread through the boats. And once you have an invasive species, you're forever dealing with it. So prevention is really the key. And it seems like such a small thing, but it's absolutely something that we can do to prevent that. So there's no way to get rid of it once you have it. It's a constant drain on your resources. Right up to the ports and tourism. And it was really great because there were representation from, a lot of the states and Quebec and, our Indigenous communities and stuff like that. So it was really interesting and very informative. And, one of the things I would suggest is we look into the membership being part of this initiative because a lot of conversations are being had and we're not at the table for them. And I think it's important for us being on the shoreline of Lake Ontario to become a member of the initiative. And there are also lots of grants and opportunities and data available to you if you're a membership.
Thank you very much for attending, Councillor Korstanji. And the Great Lakes Partnership Alliance is something that I've certainly looked into over years. Actually, in the 18 to 2022 council term, that was something that was tried to be brought forward and probably lost a 5-4 vote on moving that any further. And it's something then, it was derailed by the pandemic, but it is something that Grimsby being on one of the Great Lakes, that Canada-US alliance and partnership is huge. And it's over $1 trillion economic engine that runs through the Great Lakes. And I think it's several $1 trillion, actually. So it is something that's very important. So I thank you for attending. Can I have a mover and seconder for the Menstrual Health Day proclamation? Oh, sure, absolutely.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Thank you. If you're willing to second it, I'd like to put a motion forward that staff come back with a report on the details of membership for us so then we can make an educated decision.
Yeah, staff can take it as direction because it's something that's very important. All right, a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Frake, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. Whereas on May 28th, we recognize that 1 in 6 Canadian menstruators are affected by period poverty, a reality experienced in our community in every corner of the province and across Canada. And whereas Menstrual Health Day, MH Day, is a global day of action that was initiated by German nonprofit Wash United in 2014 to raise awareness and change how the world perceives menstruation. And whereas the Period Purse, a federally registered charity, works nationally to achieve menstrual equity by removing stigma and breaking down barriers to education and access to period supplies in communities across Canada. And whereas Period Friendly Canada is a Canada where everyone can access the products, education, and infrastructure they need to achieve menstrual health. Working together, we can end the root causes of period poverty in our community. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Jeff Jordan, do hereby proclaim May 28, 2026 as Menstrual Health Day in the town of Grimsby and encourage residents to recognize the importance of menstrual health, dignity, and equity in our community. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have a mover and seconder for the Apraxia Awareness Day proclamation? Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Howe. Whereas May 14th, 2026 marks Childhood Apraxia of Speech Day, during which awareness will be raised throughout Grimsby, Ontario, Canada, about childhood apraxia of speech, an extremely challenging speech disorder that affects 1 in 1,000 children, and whereas childhood apraxia of speech, CAS, causes children to have significant difficulty learning to speak and is among the most severe speech deficits in children, and whereas the act of learning to speak comes effortlessly to most children, those with apraxia require early, appropriate, and intensive speech therapy, often for many years, to learn to speak. And whereas without appropriate speech therapy intervention, children with apraxia will have diminished communication skills, but are also placed at high risk for secondary impacts in reading, writing, spelling, and other school-related skills. And whereas what such primary and secondary impacts diminish future independence and employment opportunities, and challenge the ability to become productive, contributing citizens if not resolved or improved. And whereas public awareness about childhood apraxia of speech in Grimsby, Ontario, Canada is essential for families of children with this neurological disorder and the professionals who support them to achieve the needed services for those learning to use their own voice. And whereas our highest respect goes to these children as well as their families for the effort, determination, and resilience in the face of such obstacles. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Jeff Jordan, do hereby proclaim May 14th, 2026 as Apraxia Awareness Day in the town of Grimsby and encourage citizens of Grimsby and surrounding areas to work within their communities to increase awareness and understanding of childhood apraxia of speech. Apraxia Kids is the leading nonprofit that strengthens the support systems of the lives of children with apraxia of speech. Please visit www.apraxiakids.org for more information. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have a mover and seconder for the Museum Month proclamation? Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Whereas the 700-plus museums, art galleries, and heritage sites, and the over 8,000 museum workers and 35,000 volunteers contribute to Ontario's $26 billion cultural sector, and whereas museums, as trusted local organizations, create healthy and connected communities, and by ensuring all Ontarians have access to cultural and heritage, inspire lifelong learning, and whereas museums promote growth and build local economies by welcoming tourists in every community across the province, whereas this month provides an opportunity to raise awareness for the vital role of museums, museum workers, and volunteers have in their community and celebrate their contributions to community well-being, tourism, education, and learning. And whereas May 18th, 2026 is International Museum Day to highlight museums as centers of education, innovation, and cultural understanding in our communities, therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Jeff Jordan, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as May is Museum Month in Grimsby and encourage all residents and tourists to visit our local museums in May. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have mover and seconder for the remaining bylaws? Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 26-30 to 26-32 inclusive, and that same be read a first time and considered and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Next meeting of council is scheduled for May 25th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. Confirming bylaw. Can I have a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 26-33 and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? And that's carried. Good night, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
Go Habs, go.
I second that.